This is the Wally and Methot Show, powered by Barhaven Ford. Now here are your hosts, Brent Wallace and Mark Methot.
Welcome to the Wally and Methot Show, everybody. I'm Brent Wallace. He's Mark Methot, and we are back, baby. As always, the Wally and Methot Show, powered by Barhaven Ford, the nation's capital best Ford dealer. And of course, go check them out online at barhavenford.com. Meth, nice to see you again. What have you been up to?
Well, Wally, it's good to see you as well. And Craig, of course, behind the scenes right now, doing all the work. I haven't done a whole lot. It's been a long summer, I guess. We just got back from a wedding, Mark and Haley Stone's wedding. So we had a little bit of fun in Vegas for about 5 days. Some travel issues, but we'll get into all that after.
All right. Yeah. Cause it seemed like you just name dropped. Like I just went to a little wedding, Mark Stone, you might know. One sec. So by the way, it's our 6-month anniversary. I know you probably brought me back a gift from Vegas for this special occasion, right?
I had no idea. Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know we were celebrating half years here. 6 months is just 6 months.
No, I think it's a gold bar. Anyway, we got some new stuff planned in the show coming up. One of these is that our Thursday show like this is going to be more of an interview type show with perhaps a former player or current player. And as well on a Monday, it's going to be more newsy type. We're going to bring in a media member. We're going to go over some more of the headline stuff. But we'll always bring up the news and notes of the day. Plus, we're going to add in live shows. And whenever needed, we will jump on and do live shows. So that's a big part that's coming up. Also, we got some new things thrown into the show. We will still have Methot takes as we like those, and 3 for 3, and a few other those things that you've come to know and love. And that's, of course, Igor Sokolov will continue to be a member of the show. But for now, let's get back to the Vegas wedding and tell me, just give me the lowdown. All right, just tell me all the dirt. Did anybody stand up and say no to the wedding? This should not happen.
Nobody stood up, but it was a cool experience because obviously my wife Ellie and I never been to Vegas for a wedding, and it was my first time going married, and now with a bunch of guys as a single young Mark Methot. So it was a good experience though, because I came back feeling good. I wasn't hungover every morning.
Were you in bed at 10?
Pretty well every night. We were working out lots. We had the gym to ourselves because we weren't staying at a casino hotel. We were at the Waldorf, which is sort of a hybrid between a hotel and residence, but it was really nice. We had a great time. And yeah, so the wedding was on Saturday and it was on a golf course. Beautiful setup that they had there. And the ceremony itself was outside. It had to have been 40 degrees. So they had a cool garden style cocktail dress code. So you weren't wearing suits per se. It was more of like a very aggressive floral pattern collared t-shirt with like dress pants and slacks or whatever you had. And the girls all looked great as well. So it was good. And I run into a few people. Zach Smith was there. Andrew Hammond was there. Cody Ceci was in the party with Brady Tkachuk. And I got to talk to everybody. I had a good chat with Brady, and we went over a lot of different things, and he's doing really well. I was shocked. I was saying to Smitty, we were sitting side by side. We were drinking some weird bourbon. That's the first wedding I ever had a drink in my hands during the actual ceremony. But no, Brady was great. He really has filled out. I said that on Twitter and I meant it. And Smitty had to chime in on that because Smitty actually played with Brady and said that Brady always had that very big lower body, but wasn't really that built up to upstairs. Yeah. And boy, he's really turning into a man. Like you could tell he's been putting in the work and he's maturing because I couldn't imagine moving a guy like that around net front. I didn't realize how tall he was. I played against him that one game when I came to Ottawa, but boy, he's got to be 6'4", maybe close to 6'5", and big. So he'll be a nightmare to play against this year, I'm assuming.
Did you watch any time he took a phone call? Like, was there many phone calls that he was taking? Was he texting?
Listen. We had a lot to talk about. As far as his negotiations go, that's none of my business. It's a big thing that obviously people are going out of their way to keep kind of secret. And I know I did tell him that the city loves him, and that even myself, like as much as the next guy, I would love for him to sign with Ottawa because I'm a fan as well. So I feel like things should work out, but you never know, right? In this business. You want to get paid what you're worth. And of course, no exception for a player like Brady Tkachuk.
Do you think he could use the money? Because the only picture I saw was him without a shirt on at the reception.
Oh yeah. And he's a fiery guy. Like he was walking around. So the groomsmen all had obviously dress shirts and a vest on top, like a traditional wedding. the shirt came off, the vest stayed on. So he's walking around with a vest on. And I think he stole some guy's top hat as well. An older gentleman that I actually met at the airport after the fact. And he was corralling older women on the dance floor and dancing with them and keeping everyone very lively. Just a character. But furthermore, like a really down to earth people person, like he's very sociable. He knows how to talk to people. He knows how to bring people in. And to me, what a guy. And really, I mean this, he went out of his way to come and talk to me, and I didn't want to bother him. He was very busy, but he made the rounds. He was very, very nice and very outgoing. So the Sens got a good one there in him.
He is a really good dude. What other stories can you tell us from the wedding? Did it go off?
The speeches. So they had us in this big tent outside because it was 40 degrees. So the reception wasn't where the ceremony was. We had to get back on the bus and drive down the street to the clubhouse, like we're at the golf course, and beautiful location. And they had us up in this big tent that was air conditioned heavily. So you walk in and you're like, oh my God, it's cold in here. But it was nice. And all the Vegas Golden Knights were there as well. A lot of the players were there. Didn't really talk to any of them, but I sat at a table. We were really close actually to the bridal party's table, which was nice. I was worried that I'd be buried somewhere in the back, but we were right up front and center. And I sat with Smitty and Hammer, and we had some drinks and had some laughs, and we were dancing. And Stoney's speech was incredibly short and stoic, as we all know Mark Stone is. And Haley followed suit, and some good speeches from their parents and all that. But I mean, it came down to the party afterwards. They brought In-N-Out burgers. I'm a huge fan of In-N-Out. For those who aren't aware, it's a big fast food chain in the States down on the West Coast. It was great. I had the spins after I had a burger or two. So I had to go sit outside on a rocking chair, but I didn't get any relief on the rocking chair because it was 42 degrees outside. So I finally kind of came back to my senses, and I was okay. And the party continued, and we still made our way home. I think I got home around 1 a.m. It wasn't that late. And we had a great time. Really nice wedding.
Did Ellie shed a tear during the speeches?
No. You couldn't shed a tear during Mark Stone's speech. He was getting me ready for a hockey game. It was so focused, but really beautiful. And like I said, it was done up properly. We were really excited to be there. Very happy for Haley and Mark. Yeah. It worked out really well.
Was there a C sewn on the inside of Brady's jacket?
No C's, no liner. I can't confirm. The only thing I can confirm, and it was based off a few pictures, was Cody Cece's shoes were a different color than the rest of the groomsmen. Other than that, but Cece, another guy, just a great guy, and happy for him. He's going to be going to Edmonton, and he's probably one of the nicest players I've ever played with. And Cece didn't disappoint. He was there. We were traveling with he and his wife Jamie, and we had a good chat with them. And he's pumped for his year, so everyone's excited. Smitty was doing well, lost a lot of weight, very skinny, very lean, I should say. Doing a lot of biking, but I think he's still having some back trouble, so he's not really able to lift too many weights. So unfortunate to hear that, but he's doing well. Him and his wife Britt were doing good too.
You posted a lot of pictures of the gym, as you talked about, in food. What was your favorite thing that you got to do with Ellie while you were there?
I'm a dinner guy, right? Like I look forward to food. So Mark Stone hooked me up with a dinner reservation at Carbone, which is a really nice Italian spot there in Vegas. And it's like a 6-month waiting list to get in. And I'd been to the one in New York before. Rick Nash, when he was playing with the Rangers, got us a reservation when I was playing with Ottawa in New York City at the Carbone location there. So we had a really nice dinner there. But we got, my wife and I kind of got into a routine where we'd get a good workout in the morning, enjoy the afternoon doing whatever on the pool, drinks, whatever it might be. And then we'd go to dinner about an hour and a half early and get dirty martinis in the casino, walk around, people watch, because that never disappoints.
No.
And then we'd go to our dinner reso with a nice little glow on and had food. And we'd usually pass out early after dinner. We didn't really have a lot of endurance afterwards, but really all around a good trip. Travel now, and this is my last little thing I'll say on this vacation. Travel these days, it was a pain in the behind, I should say. Prior to COVID, it's even worse now. The amount of hoops you got to jump through, understandably, of course, to get it across the border now with customs, showing all your, you have to download this ArriveCan app and fill out a form, a COVID form, get a PCR test overseas that you have to pay for. It's tough. And then, of course, a lot of people going to customs in line don't even have their paperwork, so it prolongs the process. There's tons of delays. We almost missed our flight coming back. It was tough. So again, be wary if you're planning on going to the States or anywhere else overseas. It's a real pain in the ass.
Nice. Yeah, I don't plan on going anywhere. I just like being here with you.
Okay, that's very kind.
All right, so we'll wrap this up, and it's good to see you back. Yeah. The one thing I do remember with Vegas, though, and you didn't touch on it, I'm not sure if you did it, but did you walk much?
All we did was walk.
The Strip, you think the hotel is like right over there, or it's right over there. It's a million miles away by the time you walk to it, right? Like that's the whole deceiving thing.
And the strip is pretty grungy, like when you're going up and I hate seeing it, but there's lots of homeless people and they're sleeping on the streets and there's drunk people walking around everywhere, understandably so, of course, but it's not as glamorous as you think it is unless you get back in towards that hotel. And then even in the mornings, like we'd get up at like 6:30 sometimes because of the time change with our coffee, walk into like a hotel to get a Starbucks. And there's people still gambling in their clothes from the night before with a drink in their hand. The anxiety that gave me, Wally, like just seeing them still awake and gambling and smoking cigarettes at like 7 a.m. And I'm like, oh my God, I do not envy that at all. But but I mean, they're in Vegas. They're allowed to do what they want. It's a free country. That wasn't my bag. I'm over that phase.
But I'm just wondering, like the mindset that you have to be at 7 a.m. and maybe I don't know, maybe they're from Europe, but at 7 a.m. they're just piling coins into a coin machine.
They're not from Europe. You can hear them screaming. It's couples like normal, like some of them look a little different, they look like they've had it rough for a little while. And any of the others that are just dressed up and look like they just had a good night out and they're still up. So again, not what my wife and I did this time around with the kids at home and all. We wanted to come back rested and I didn't want to have a vacation from my vacation. So I made the right call.
Perfect. Yeah, good to see you back. Always smart. I always like how you played a safe game, as we like to say.
Very conservative, yes.
So coming up on the show, we have Brian Boucher. Of course, he's the dad of Tyler Boucher, the 10th overall pick. It's brought to you by whitewaterbeer.ca. Don't forget to use the Wally Methot coupon code. And as well, for the upcoming season, you want to fill up your fridge. So go to shopwhitewater.ca. Use the Wally Methot coupon code, 15% off for all your purchases. Okay. Here's something we got new planned, Methot, and I don't even think you've seen this. John Perlberg is the TSN stats guy for all the Sens games for the most part, and then he also does CFL games. But he and I, when I was there, we used to try to find the strangest, quirkiest kind of notes to put in the broadcast. So any of those notes you see in the broadcast, John Perlberg has done. And we spent hours upon hours trying to find these things. So I used to compile a stats package about 5 pages long for the broadcast each game, and he would do almost the same. So we had a ton of notes and half of them never made it in the show. But I reached out to him and said, listen, I'd love to see what kind of quirky stuff you can come up with. So in our show now, we're going to use this thing. It's called, his name is Perlberg. So we're going to call it Pearls of Wisdom. And so I'm going to take a look. Here's the first Pearls of Wisdom we have in today's show, because they just got some weird stuff. So here it goes. 19 players have had a son drafted in the top 10. 2 players have had 2 sons drafted in the top 10. And one of those is Paul Reinhart. The other one, by the way, is Keith Tkachuk. And then finally, one goalie has had a player drafted in the top 10. Just one NHL goalie's had his son drafted in the top 10. That's Brian Boucher, who's our guest today. See, so that's the kind of excitement you're going to see in the show.
I'm pumped. That's great. What a great little hookup we have now. That's awesome. That means I don't have to go digging for obscure stats, or you, Wally. That's good. I love it.
You were never expected to do that, but
no chance.
But Perlberg, we'll have him on one time to talk about, because he's got good stories and he comes up with some crazy stuff. So he's already working on the next show. Now, speaking of Brian Boucher, in case you don't know, here's another new feature. It's the Pre-Scout of Brian Boucher, brought to you by Bonnechere Excavating Inc., helping to shape the Ottawa Valley for all your heavy equipment rental needs. Check them out at BonnechereExcavating.com. All right, Brian Boucher is born January 2nd, 1977 in Woonsocket, Rhode Island. Drafted 22nd overall by the Flyers in 1995. He played 328 NHL games. By the way, played for the Flyers 3 times. And his biggest claim to fame, never allowed a goal to Mark Methot.
Oh, well, I mean, that's not saying very much, but thanks for that, Wally. We're already back into the meth chirps, eh?
I've missed you. It's been a month.
That's okay. You're fair game as well. I'm aware of this.
Yeah, I know. I did put on a normal shirt today just in case anything were to go sideways. So let's get to the Brian Boucher interview. So we're going to take a quick break. When we return, Brian Boucher, the lead analyst for NBC, ESPN, their new NHL package. And he worked for NBC for a really long time, which might play a part in the fact that his Wi-Fi is down right now. So when we talked to him, he was on his data plan, and it's a little bit wonky at the beginning. So we're going to blame NBC and Comcast for all the delays and all the wonkiness at the beginning of the interview. But the interview is really good. So you're going to see that. We're going to talk about Tyler. We're going to talk about lots of different things going on. Tom Wilson names come up, of course. So we'll listen to all that. But for now, you're watching the Wally Methot Show, powered by Barhaven Ford. Matthew and I have been to Barhaven Ford to check out their custom lineup of BFC F-150s, Rangers, Mustangs. But now they've added a new teammate, customizing the all-new Bronco in the BFC look. Also coming up from September 16th to the 18th, Barhaven Ford is having a VIP clear-out sale on all their used vehicles. They have some of the largest inventories of used vehicles in the Ottawa area. Come on down, 555 Dealership Drive in Barhaven, and check out the many different makes and models. All right, welcome back to the show, and welcome into the Whitewater Chat. 13-year NHL veteran, now the ESPN analyst, and of course, the proud father of one, Tyler Boucher, the 10th overall pick in this year's draft. Brian Boucher, welcome to the show, our friend.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's great to be on.
Okay, let's start with Tyler, because that's the big news, and obviously the one you probably want to brag the most about, and rightfully so, as you should as a proud dad. Can you take us through that draft night? Because did you realistically think he was going anywhere near the top 10?
No, I actually honestly thought he probably was more like a 20, like around there. That's what I thought what would happen. And, the indications that I got were that, his advisor had said he's going to go first round. And I was like, okay. And then you kind of wonder where it will be. And I got indication that Ottawa liked him. But I also didn't think that they were going to take him with a 10th overall pick. The indication that I got was that I think they had two picks, like 30 something and 40, maybe like two early second rounders. They wanted to flip those two picks and move into like maybe the 20 range. So that's initially what going in. I thought maybe that could have been a possibility, but I also heard that there were some teams that liked them in the teens. So I think that's probably why he ended up. They had to make a decision at 10, because had they made those trades, he might not have been there in the 20s anyhow. So it worked out in his favor. It's crazy to see how that whole draft process unfolds. Being on the other side of it now, I got to kind of understand the workings of it, and I'm really happy for him. It was like I said. I think I had an interview afterwards. It was a hard year for him, injury wise, and getting COVID and stuff like that. He missed some time. When he played well. You just never know how it's going to unfold, right? When you don't play that many games. And fortunately, I think teams saw value in his play when he did play, and hopefully all those injuries are out of the way and he can take off now.
Now, you went 22nd overall to the Flyers in 95. Is it a lot more nerve-wracking to watch your son go through this than it is for you to go through it?
He was probably more nervous than I was. I felt, I had a good feeling that he was, going to go in the first round. Like I said, I just didn't know where. I kind of got a heads up from a friend of mine who's a PR guy in Dallas, who was with me in San Jose, and he sent me a text 30 seconds prior. So I had a heads up that it was on the computer screen. And I think I looked over at Tyler and I gave him a wink, and he froze. Like, I think I spooked him. And, at that point I just remember my draft. I don't even remember it. I think, like Tyler says, you black out. I mean, I don't know what it was for you, Meth, but like I remember getting picked 22nd, and I don't even remember walking down the stairs. I got drafted in Edmonton, going down the stairs, going on the floor, getting up, shaking Gary Bettman's hand. I don't remember any of it. It's just, you see the pictures and you're like, wow. It's a neat moment for 18-year-olds to get drafted, and it's one of those things that you hope goes the way you want it to, and you hope it's just the start of a great career.
Math will talk about the fact that he wasn't anywhere near the draft wall that day.
No, I was in bed, but we won't get into that right now. It's all good.
So I guess, what was the reaction with the family afterwards, being selected 10th overall? And one of the questions I meant to ask was, did you guys have lots of meetings with Ottawa? Like, was there a clear cut that there was, I know you talked about interest, but was there an overwhelming sense of interest?
Well, to be honest with you, Tyler was living in Michigan, because he was playing for the national program. So all his interviews and stuff, I was not a part of. I was on the road with the playoffs. So he really was on his own doing that with his advisor. And I think he talked to Ottawa several times, but he talked to a lot of teams several times. And I think that's where that interest from a lot of teams, especially in the teens, I think that's where it was starting to, gain steam. And, but yeah, I think Ottawa showed a lot of interest. And, but like I said, I give him a lot of credit. He handled all this stuff on his own, with the appointments and the Zooms and all that. I know he botched his schedule up a couple of times. He called me. He's like, "Oh my God, I can't believe it. I forgot my Zoom with such and such team." And I was like, "Well, no, forget them. They won't be drafting yet, But to be honest with you, I was overwhelmed. I couldn't believe it. Like, you'd have like 4 or 5 Zooms a day, for weeks leading up to the draft. So I don't know if it was easier for teams to interview kids this way, but it was a lot for them. I know that after draft night, he was relieved, to kind of like just be done with it. And now you're drafted by a team. You can kind of start planning your next steps in hopes to get there.
And that's got to be tough. That's got to be tough as a dad, though. Like, I've got a son; he's only 3, but I can only imagine. You want to be able to help him because you've been there, and he's only 17 or 18, and they're going through this process that most regular people out there don't go through with that kind of intense pressure at that age. And to me, it's pretty brutal. And I never had the chance to go through this. Like, Bush, I'm sure you had the opportunity to do a ton of interviews because you were a highly rated prospect at that time. I never got to go through that. But I mean, at that age, I was still in high school, and I couldn't imagine, handling that kind of pressure. So is it just a situation where you're just kind of like, Tyler, just try to be yourself and relax, try not to paint the wrong picture? Is that sort of your approach as a parent that was also an ex-player, or do you just kind of try to guide him as much as you can?
Well, to be honest with you, it's funny. Like, he's at the age now where he wants to kind of spread his wings and be his own person. So yeah. I've tried my best to get out of the way, and I let his advisor advise him. He and handle it like you and I would have with our agents. You know what I mean? And my dad he didn't play, so he didn't know. He was a fan, but there's not much he could help me with. I mean, I just said to Tyler, if there's any questions you have, ask me. I'm not going to sit there and try and coach you how to do this. I think you've got a good head on your shoulders. I think at the U.S. national program, they do a good job of preparing these kids for a lot of things, not only on the ice, but the off ice stuff, whether it's the workouts or handling interviews and dealing with, with stuff like this. So I trust really does. I mean, I don't claim to have all the answers. I just know that I went through it at a certain time. We played different positions. Could I give him some insight? Yeah. Do I offer it every day? No. I try and just let him be his own person. And if he has questions, come to me. But to be honest with you, he's finding his own path, and he's leaning on the people that he feels he needs to lean on. And if he does have something, he comes to me, but it's not that often.
Yeah. So Bush, and I just wanted to add more because you made a really good point there, how you guys are different positions. He plays with a little bit of bite. He plays with a little bit of a chip on his shoulder. Where does all that come from? Like, I can't imagine you were kind of ingraining that in his head when he was 5 years old. Is that just his personality that kind of comes out when he's on the ice?
Yeah, I like to think, Meth, if I was a forward, I would have been this big power forward that was running guys over and teeing off on guys and fighting everybody. But I don't know, man. To be honest with you, he's always been an aggressive kid who loves sports, who always loved competing. And I think, that's just what comes out in you, when you want to win. And you find the thing that I'm proud of is that, I think when you're coming up as a youth hockey player, everybody's in love with speed and skill in the NHL, and which is great. It is the speed and skill of these guys is so far superior to what we've seen 25 years ago. But not every kid is Connor McDavid, like, you have to find what makes you go. And I think he started to realize, one, that, he enjoyed working out. So the off ice stuff was taken care of. Like, he likes working out.
Yeah, that's huge.
He's physically mature that way. So I think he got a lot of confidence that way. And he realized that when he got on the ice, he could use that strength and power to, kind of do what he wanted to do out there and kind of play to his strengths. And I think, of course, he'd love to be, Connor McDavid some nights and skate through the whole team and tuck it through his legs and put it top shelf and do it at 1,000,000 miles an hour. But that's not who he is. And he's found out what he is. And I think he's embraced it. And I think he enjoys watching guys like Matthew Tkachuk and Brady Tkachuk and Tom Wilson and these guys and Josh Anderson as well. And wants to be like those guys. I'm not saying he is those guys, but there are times when he plays like you see that side of his game that comes out. And I think it's a valuable tool to have.
Yeah, and I think his timing is incredible because, as you and I came into the league, when we did, you had at least 2 big heavyweights, right, on every team.
Yeah. So
if you played that hard-nosed role and you happen to be a bit of a skilled guy too, it was hard to really impose your will on anybody because you knew someone was going to come knocking on your back, right? But I feel like players like Tyler, like your son, and the Tom Wilsons out there now, really, there aren't a whole lot of answers for them out there anymore, right? So they can really just have at it on the ice and get away with it. So to add to your point, I feel like there's a really big place for them now in the league, and they can just have at it. They can impose their will, and they don't have to fight some big mutant for no reason anymore. Right. So I feel like that role is incredibly effective. So I wasn't surprised when they drafted him. To me, it was like perfect. He's going to fit in perfect with the culture in this team. So I agree with you in that. And it's the perfect time for that player to come into the NHL and be effective right away.
Yeah, and I totally agree. And I think, everybody kind of, they want to look at point totals and stuff like that with prospects that are coming up. And I get it. And some guys are, they put up a lot of points, but you and I know that when you're in a team setting and you're in a playoff series, there are certain intangibles to a team that are valuable. And I think the way you play, the style with which your team plays, I think all of these things are very important in the identity of your team. And it seems to me like, when I'm just an outsider looking in, I don't claim to be an Ottawa Senators expert by any stretch, because I really haven't done a lot of their games because I was in the States. But I watched him play, and DJ Smith, especially in the second half of the season, it seemed like there was an identity to their club. They're hard to play.
I agree.
Against, right? And Brady Tkachuk is like he's leading the charge with that, and I think that fits right into Tyler's game and the way he wants to play. So I think it's a nice fit. I don't think you can have 20 of those guys on your team. You have to have a blend of players, and I think that's what makes championship teams is you find the right chemistry. But I think it's so valuable now because, like you said, you don't have those guys that you have to worry about night in and night out.
Yeah, comparisons aren't always fair or even valid. But you brought up Tom Wilson, Josh Anderson, a few of those guys. Are you okay with the comparison to Tom Wilson? Do you think that that's fair, valid?
I don't know about like a direct comparison, but if you're looking to, if a fan hasn't seen a player play, I think, when you're in a draft setting, I think if you're just trying to paint a picture, like, so the fan can understand who this kid is, I think it's fair to do in that sense, but it's not fair to Tom Wilson for all the work that he's put in and who he is to, say that an 18-year-old kid is him. Like, it's not, Tom Wilson is his own player. And Tom Wilson, has earned, his stake in the NHL for what he's done. And, for the record, I love Tom Wilson and I love the way he plays. And I know that might upset some people. To me, if you're a Capitals fan, you love Tom Wilson. If you're not a Capitals fan, you hate Tom Wilson. To me, that's a compliment.
I couldn't think of one NHL team that wouldn't want Tom Wilson on their hockey club. I think that's really the end of the discussion right there. Would you want him on your team? Probably.
Yeah. And for $5 million, you would. Right? I think if you have $5 million, like to me, it's a bargain. I mean, for what he brings, and he can play. He's not a guy that can't play. So that's why I have a ton of respect for him, and I don't want to disrespect him by saying that my son or anybody else is Tom Wilson. They're all their own player. But if you're just looking for some comparisons, I think it's there. I think it's fair.
Yeah, and very valid. Okay, so you talked earlier about the teams wanting to get to know Tyler a bit with some questions. I made up some questions. I need you to answer. They're basically yes or no, just so we can understand Tyler more. Does he keep his room clean?
Yes.
Has he ever been grounded?
Oh, yes.
Does he wash the dishes?
No.
Has he ever bought your mom flowers? Or his mom flowers, sorry.
No, he has not. But he hasn't had his own money either, I'll give him a pass on that one.
Has he ever got you a tie for Father's Day?
No.
And why is he not a goalie? What did you do to scare him off being a goalie?
Well, if you look at my career stats, you can see that it wasn't great, and it was a lot of stress on my wife. And it's a true story. My wife said to me, she said when he started playing hockey, she says, please discourage him from being a goaltender. That's all I ask. And I said, okay, you've got my word. I will do my best to steer him away from it. And he wanted to be a goalie for the longest time. And but it turns out that I think what he wanted was the gear. Like that's what attracted me to wanting to be a goalie too, is the mask and the pads. And when I was coming up, there were brown pads. I just wanted a pair of colored pads. I was like, that's amazing, like red and blue pads. And once I got him a Bauer mask from a Bauer rep, that was it. The discussion stopped. He never again mentioned about wanting to be a goaltender. And I think maybe he played net a handful of times, like when they rotate kids through. But he never after that ever questioned it again. I think he enjoyed skating and scoring some goals.
Yep. I remember I got a pair of Canadian goalie pads when I don't know how old I was, maybe 10, 12, and they were horsehair filled, and they just smelled that leather. They were great. I always remember just having that gear. That was the best part. Yeah, for sure.
DNR pads. I had DNR pads. They were red and blue. And so my parents were from just outside of Sherbrooke, a town called Magog in Quebec there. So we'd go up there every Christmas because that's where my parents are from. We'd visit family. And there was a sports experts store in town. And I'd go in there and I'd fiddle with the hockey gear. And they had a pair of red and blue DNR pads. And I didn't want to leave the store. So my dad surprised me, and he had my uncle. We left the store and we went back home to Rhode Island, Christmas time, New Year's, and I got nothing. And for my birthday, January 2nd, my uncle drove the pads down, and it was a birthday gift for me. So it was like the greatest birthday gift I ever had. I slept with those pads. I love those.
Yeah, that's true. Tyler was born in Scottsdale. I'm just curious, did Austin Matthews play any part just with him, or was Tyler already gone by the time that Austin Matthews was really becoming, I guess, famous, if you will?
Yeah, no, we didn't know Austin when I was playing there. What is he, in 97? I think he's born in 97, maybe. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So he's 6 years older than Tyler. Yeah, I think I was out of there in 05 or 06. 06, maybe. I got traded to Calgary. So just the same. I don't even know if Austin was born in Phoenix, was he? I think he was California, but he grew up in Phoenix. But no, it's pretty cool. People don't realize that he was born in Scottsdale, Tyler, but he was. Yeah, I think for the longest time he thought he was born in New Jersey, but that just goes to show you how much he pays attention.
I just read a note about Daniel Briere's kids and him would hang out at the rink together. Have they reached out, I guess, since, knowing that Briere's not far? He's in the Ottawa area in Gatineau. I didn't know if you guys had met up or chatted since.
Yeah, I know we haven't. Danny sent me a nice text after the draft, just congratulating me and Tyler. The kids, they all went to school together. His kids his youngest is 2 years older than Tyler, and then his two older boys are, I think, maybe 4 and 5 years older than Tyler. But they all went to the same school system here in Haddonfield, New Jersey, where we live, just outside of Philadelphia. And we all played for the same youth hockey program, Team Comcast. So we'd always see them around. And I know Tyler enjoyed hanging around the locker rooms with them on game days and all that stuff. But yeah, it's funny. Like, some guys stay in the area, some don't. The Brieres did. And I think they have a nice connection, those boys.
I got to ask, Bouch, how did you end up with 3 different stints with the Philadelphia Flyers? Was it like an ex-girlfriend you couldn't leave?
Yeah, actually it was 4, to be honest with you. So Meth and I would have been in Columbus, right?
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, I remember playing with you there, but I think I was a call-up because it was the 2006, 2007 season, and you were there. I think you were there for like a handful of games too, right? Or you played a handful of games.
Weeks.
Yeah,
so at
there
the
you go.
deadline,
So,
at the deadline, I got picked up on waivers. So this is a great. I don't want to take up all the time here, but this is actually a really funny story, and I don't even know if you remember this. But so I was there. I got picked up off waivers by Columbus, and my wife stayed in Chicago with Tyler and my daughter. They were just really young, and like 3-4 years old. And I'm there in the hotel, and I'm trying to, I'd go to dinner with you guys and stuff like that. And I'd say, hey, let's grab a beer. You know what I mean? You guys are like, no, you guys are so focused. You wanted to make it, and I was like, okay, I can understand that. But remember Jeff Platt? Jeff Platt.
Yeah, of course. He was my roommate in Syracuse.
So this guy, he would practice at 1,000 miles an hour with 5 games left in the regular season. A team that's not making the playoffs, right? We have an optional skate. And he's firing pucks like off the collarbone, and I'm just not in the mood. Like, it's an optional skate. I just want to let's just get out of here and we can move on with our day. Yeah. And I got wild at him, and I told him, I yelled at him. I said, if you shoot the puck again at my neck, I said, we're fighting, right? And the next guy that comes down is Joachim Lidstrom. Remember him? He was a good player,
very good skilled player.
Down. Yeah. Unreal. He comes down, next shot goes underneath the crossbar and hits that back bar and goes plunk, plunk, and everybody in the corner is like they couldn't believe it. They start laughing, and I lose it. I take my stick and I go to smash it on the crossbar and dislocate my shoulder. Doug McLean suspends me, right? And says they're not paying for my surgery. So now I'm like, I was borderline going to the minors anyway. So the next year I called Paul Holmgren after shoulder surgery. Nobody wanted me, right? I was on waivers to Columbus. They were a non-playoff team, and I really just needed to play. So I called Paul Holmgren and I begged him. I said, can I please just sign a minor league contract and play for the Philadelphia Phantoms? I said, I just want to play. I don't want an NHL deal. I just want to get my confidence back. And he said, absolutely, no problem. Signed for $100,000 to play for the Philadelphia Phantoms. I played 42 games. And eventually from there, I signed with San Jose for 1.5 years. And then I came back to Philadelphia because I think Homer wanted to sign me to a 2-way contract, but didn't have enough room. And I went to San Jose for 1.5 years, and then I came back and signed for 2 years there. And then Homer brought me back a 4th time from Carolina. But put me in the minors, and that was the end of it. So I think a lot of it had to do with Paul Holmgren, and I guess he liked me, hated me, but at the end of the day, he did a lot of favors for me, and I'm really grateful that he brought me to Philadelphia back, because without that, my career could have been dead after that Columbus debacle. But fortunately, my shoulder is good and strong now, and I got a funny story to go along with it.
And it's amazing that that one subtle moment of Jeff Platt, who plays for the Belarusian national team, by the way, because I had to cover him at the World Championships this year. He's still playing. Yeah. But because he's got his dual citizenship. But had he not gone towards your neck, followed by Joachim Lindstrom, maybe your whole fate would have changed and you'd be somewhere else right now. Right. So
imagine that. Crazy. Yeah. And then, it's a great point. Another thing too, is you try and call your wife when she's in Chicago with two young kids, and I call her and I say, oh, hey, hon, I hurt my shoulder today. She's like, oh no. I was like, yeah, it's not good. She goes, how did you do it? And I told her how I did it, and she hung up on me.
She's like, people don't understand. People don't understand how much stress, like being a hockey wife or an athlete's wife in general, especially if you're floating from organization to organization, you're playing multiple places. That's brutal for them, because they don't get to lay any roots down. They don't get to have any concrete relationships with other people and friends. It's just like you're constantly on the move. So I can kind of sympathize with your wife for hanging up on you in that moment.
Oh yeah. She had every right to, and you're right. I mean, it is hard for the spouses, especially when you got 1 foot in, 1 foot out. It's not like they're signing backup goaltenders to 6-year no trade clause deals. That's right. So, but that, it is what it is, and you learn to deal with it. And we've got great stories, and we've met a lot of great people along the way. And, but you're right. She has every right to be mad at me for that.
So who's your least favorite guy that you would face in practice? Is it Platt, or is there someone else that just drive you nuts?
No, I've since forgotten or forgiven Jeff for that. I don't know. I don't know if there was anybody that when I first came in the NHL, I remember John LeClair in Philly. I mean, he had a curve on his. It wasn't a curve. It was like the thing was like this, and he came down the left side all the time, right, and just teed it up from the top of the circles, and it was hard and it was high. And I figured out, I at first, when you're a rookie, you'd go down and you're trying so hard to impress, and it hurt every time. I said, you know what? I'm not doing this anymore. I'm going to go out when he comes down because he just buries his head. I'm just going to step out 3-4 feet and take it before it actually comes up and hits me in the collarbone. And, I think all he wanted to do was just take slappers. Like I've played golf with John LeClair too. He just wants to hit his driver as far as possible at all. Everything's about like hitting it hard and hitting it far. And that's all he wanted to do. He wasn't interested in deking me or pump faking me. He just wanted to shoot it and see if I would grimace. And, I think he took joy out of that. And he did all his scoring in games and less in practice.
That's outstanding.
That's awesome.
You had one of your times in Philadelphia, the 2010 era. Ray Emery was your, I guess, goalie partner, if you will. And I know he was battling back, trying to get through that all that hip stuff that was going on. What do you remember about your time with him? I guess battling for the net, if you will.
Yeah, Ray came to Philly, and I think he was getting a second chance from Paul Holmgren at that time, and it was kind of like a show me type deal. And I just, you hear the stories of players, some, their reputation, comes before them. And, you always wonder what he's going to be like. I thought he was a great guy, and I thought he was a committed guy when he got here. We had a nice relationship. His work ethic was superior. He was in great shape. It was just really unfortunate for him. He started to develop this hip problem that was giving him issues, and he was trying to play through it. And you could just see it wasn't easy for him. And he had a really tough surgery. I think they had to take bone from his ankle and put it in his hip because his hip bone was dying. And he battled back from all that. And I know that it was hard because we had a team that I think we ended up going to the finals that year in a crazy way with all different goaltenders. But when he signed there, I think he like I thought when I signed there, we had a chance to be a team that could go far and have a chance to win. They just brought in Chris Pronger. They traded for him. Carter and Richards were getting into their prime. Danny Briere was still a great player. Simon Gagne. I mean, we had a good team that we stumbled. And I think for him, it was hard for him because he was in Russia and he wanted to just prove so badly that he could be a number one guy. And I tell you, if he was healthy, we would have had no goalie carousel there that year. He would have been the number one. I would have been the number two. I think we would have been a good tandem. And I think we would have had much more stable goaltending than we had that year. And maybe it would have been a different story when we got to the final against Chicago. But unfortunately, it didn't play out that way. And now it's, obviously with Ray gone, it's such a sad story. But I had so much respect for him because then after that, the way he battled back and came back and playing for Chicago and the perseverance that he showed, I think in the end, he ended up proving that he was a champion.
Yeah, no question. Philadelphia, by the way, I'm going to go right back there. They made so many changes this offseason. I'll ask you as a broadcaster, if you will. They've now just signed Derek Brassard. Are you surprised at all the change they've made? And do you think they've now maybe turned the corner of what they need to do here?
I'm not surprised at the changes that they've made. They had to. I think, when Ron Hextall was here, I think the idea was that this was going to be a rebuild and it was going to take some time and it required some patience. And I think initially there was a lot of buy-in on that from the fans and ownership. And I think, but as a year or two went on, I think they realized that this could be done faster. And I think the impatience grew. And, the fans here in Philadelphia are hard. And, so when Chuck Fletcher came in, they had that success the one year and Hart played great. And then he stumbled last year. But a lot of it, I think, had to do with the fact that this team just wasn't the same defensively. And they realized that they needed to make some changes on the back end. And I think the changes are going to help. I know Ristolainen, he gets killed by a lot of people for, the analytics side of it. But, Meth, you and I know, like when you play on a team that loses every single night and you got to put your gear on and go out there and try and put your best foot forward, it's hard. Yeah. Of course, the numbers aren't going to go in your favor. He's a big guy that can move. I think he's going to do well here in Philadelphia. I think it's a good pickup. And Keith Yandel's a guy that can run a power play. I think the power play's been okay, but to be honest, it can be better. And I think they got a guy in Yandel that can run the power play. I don't know that Provorov's overly comfortable at running the power play all the time. I think he's more of a second power play guy to me. That's just the way I see it. And Gostisbehere wanted to be that guy, but he was, it felt like a lot of nervous energy at all times, and he had a great start to his career, but it's, I think he just needed to change his senior. So I think the moves are good. I think they needed it. And look, they trade a big guy in Jake Voracek, who is a big personality. That grabs everybody's attention. And, I think Jake at times was always wanting to be more of a passer, and the power play had to run a certain way. And he's a great player, and I think he'll be great in Columbus again. And I think getting a guy like Cam Atkinson, maybe more of a shooter, brings a bit of life, a little bit of energy. I think it's going to be good. But all bets could be off. If Hart plays like he did last year, they're going to be in it tough. But if he can find a way to turn it around and be the Carter Hart that we saw 2 years ago and 3 years ago, I think there's a chance that this team could be in the top 3 in their division.
Yeah, no question. A lot of moves. Are you excited? Obviously, with now the new ESPN deal and going there and being the analyst alongside our good friend Ray Ferraro as well.
I'm totally pumped. In a lot of ways, it's bittersweet because NBC was where I worked, and we had a lot of great people there. I'd been there 6 years. They've had to deal a lot longer than that. And, it's just tough, when you find out that they're not going to be a part of it going forward, you get nervous. You're like, well, what does that mean for me? And, I think everybody wants to find a new home. Unfortunately for me, I was able to find a home with ESPN. A lot of my peers are going over to the TNT side. So I'm happy for them. I think at the end of the day, we all love the game. We all love covering the game. We all love being around the game. And there's a lot of great people that worked at NBC that are going to get another chance at another outlet. So that's great. But with ESPN, it's the network that I watched growing up in the States, and it's a lot of it is nostalgic, and it's amazing to be a part of, the worldwide leader in sports. And they got a lot of people that love hockey too. And I know that it hasn't been front and center for them for the last several years, but I'm confident that with the team that's assembled, we're gonna do the very best we can to bring in a great product in the States. And I can't wait to start. It's been a short off season. It's going to be a short off season, but I'm excited to go.
And this one will drive Meth crazy. Why are goalies better analysts than most any other position player?
I don't know. Maybe we're bullshitters. I'm not really sure. Maybe we're good at that. If I'm not doing this, maybe I'd be a used car salesman or something. But I don't know. I think, what it is? I think I watched a lot of hockey, whether, you're at the other end of the ice and you see the play developing down at the other end, or you're on the bench and you're watching the game. You're seeing how players are reacting. You're the defenseman coming off, and you're hearing the coach talk to them. And, if you're paying attention, you can pick up on a lot of things. If you're not paying attention, then you won't pick up on stuff. But, like I said earlier, I don't claim to know everything. Like, I don't know what it's like to elude a forecheck, as a defenseman, and get two guys barreling down on you, and you got to find a way to make a play and put a tape to tape pass on a guy's stick. And I don't know what it's like to score goals. I mean, I have an idea of, what's difficult for me to stop, and what made me uncomfortable. So I try and spin it around that way and use my knowledge that way to analyze the game. But I'm still learning every single day. There's so much you can learn in this game at all different positions. And I think that's what makes it so good.
We always ask this question to all our guests. Do you have a favorite snack if you were to sit at home and watch a movie? It's a very important question.
Ice cream to me is like, I love ice cream. And when I was a kid, I'd eat a pint of cookie dough ice cream a day, If that's my one guilty pleasure, is ice cream. And
this is one of the first times a guest didn't hesitate. Like, Boosh just threw it right at us. So I believe him. This is good. So thank you for that.
Yeah, you're welcome. I try not to eat much of it now, though. The pounds,
your metabolism is just a little different in retirement, right?
Oh, and don't worry. Tyler reminds me of that all the time. He'll give me a little pinch and stuff. So I wish I could be 18 again.
Amen.
Did you have a lot of superstitions as a player? Because goalies are a little quirky, let's admit it.
Yeah, we are quirky. I always put like my left skate on first, my left pad on, and then I had some stupid thing I do at the end of the anthem where I'd skate around and then I'd do like a squat and jump up. And I don't know if it's superstition or just like a routine that you get into. And
that's a routine.
Yeah, and I tapped at a face off. I tapped the ice twice and then tapped my toe twice. I don't know why, but I just did it. It just felt comfortable. I think the one thing that I realized as I got longer in my career, all of like the stuff that you do to warm up, like, if you played good, all of a sudden you added another thing to your pregame routine. Like I was so exhausted just preparing for a game like that. I would love to play in the NHL today, but I would want to do it on this term. I would want to show up literally 20 minutes before and put my gear on and go play and take my gear off and get out of there. But you can't do, it's impossible, right? And that's why you play men's league or beer league, because you can do it that way. But that's what wore me out in the end, was all that preparation just to play. It just got to be too much.
I agree. I totally, and same for me, Boosh. Like I was very hyper, focused and very pragmatic. So, my routine was always very similar. I wasn't crazy about it, but I agree though that it's so time consuming and exhausting. Like you could have a game, you're playing the next day, right? Well, the day before, I got to make sure I'm eating pretty well. I got to make sure I sleep well at night. I can't be out too late. I got to do this. I got to do that. Like you're never really turned off until the season is over, right? And then all of a sudden I get sick or I get strep throat because my body's finally just going, time to take a break here and recover. And I feel like I couldn't agree more with that statement. And that's something most people don't realize. It's the mental exhaustion of a grind of 82 games is very difficult. Yeah,
it's hard. And then also think about this. How did you feel in August? I don't know about you, but I was so stressed in August that my conditioning wasn't good enough.
Same.
I'm like, what are we doing for testing? I heard there's a 6-mile run and you're like, oh my God, a 6-mile run. And you got to do it in under 20 minutes or whatever the heck, something stupid,
it was crazy.
Like, what? Oh my God, you go run and you're 10 minutes behind and you're stressed out and you're barking at your wife and you're barking at the kids and it's not, you haven't even played a game yet. Oh, that's the worst.
Yeah, I agree. And it's funny you say that because it doesn't matter how old you are. I mean, maybe I was a little more relaxed toward the end, but even still, the anxiety level is still there and the unknown of the fitness testing. And then of course, as you finish your testing. It doesn't matter if you feel you're finished at the top or the bottom. If you have a poor first exhibition game, nobody gives a shit if you finish first in pull-ups. You know what I mean? But you don't know that in the moment as a player. You're just like, you're so consumed by it. And so like you mentioned, if I could go back 10 years and just calm myself down and say, Mark, relax, nobody gives a shit, I think I would have been better for it, but nobody ever did that.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. I mean, these are the things that I think a lot of fans don't recognize, right? The little things. And, I'm not complaining because it's a great life.
No, of course not.
It's a great career. It was awesome, but it's not. In the end, it catches up to you. In the end, you can't keep up with some of these young kids. They come in and these kids can do whatever they want because they're 18, 19, 20 years old, and you're 36, and that's just the way it is.
Last couple of questions. One is, do you have think of a Stanley Cup favorite at the moment?
Good question.
Yeah, that is a good question. I liked Colorado last year.
Yeah.
And I just can't bet against Colorado. You know what I mean?
I agree.
I feel like I should be giving respect to Tampa because they've proven twice, but they also lost, some significant pieces this year with, Coleman and Goudreau going away and Gord. So I think I'm going to go with Colorado. I think they're finally going to push it over the top. I mean, their back end's ridiculous. McKinnon's ridiculous. They just need. I just can't even believe they lost to Vegas last year. I just was shocked how they just petered out. It was shocking to me.
Yeah. Finally, Ray Ferraro got to have one of the coolest moments, and that was being able to do a game with his son Landon Ferraro in it. Have you given any thought to that? And will you be trying to do all the Ottawa games in the near future once Tyler's in the NHL? And how exciting would it be to be able to call a game that your son's playing in?
Yeah, it has crossed my mind. When I was with NBC, like we'd have pre-game interviews down at ice level and stuff like that. And would it be pretty cool to interview your son and see how he would I'm sure he'd lip me off or something like that. He'd probably have something for me. But yeah, I've thought about it. It'd be pretty neat, like it's a pretty cool job, the one that I have now, and to still be involved in hockey on this side of it is awesome. And the success that my son has had, as a kid, and now he's in this position, it could line up. I'm not saying it's going to, it could, I hope it does. It'd be great to call a game, but at the same time, I'd also like to just watch his game, I don't want to sit there. I don't want to sit there and have to, well, that's a dirty hit by Boucher. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to have to say that. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to have to bury the kid. If I could just I'd like to do one and then maybe get a pass on all of his games and maybe just sit there and watch it as a dad.
Yeah. I can imagine you don't want to do the first one for sure.
No, gosh, no. I would want to watch. I'd want to watch that one. Yeah, for sure. Take that in. Yeah.
Well, we look forward to seeing both of you in Ottawa, right? We want to see Tyler Boucher light it up and put on the Sens jersey, and we'd like to see you calling the game, and if not being in the stands. The alumni, or I should say the dad's trip, would be phenomenal with all the former players that are in this organization at the moment.
True.
I was just going to say that. Like, that's the one trip that I'm looking forward to. Hopefully we can knock this COVID thing out of the way when we get back to a good old-fashioned dad's trip with some of those. There'd be some good stories with those guys. Any dad that didn't play in the NHL, I mean, grab a chair and listen to the stories with these guys to soak it all in. It would be great.
Yeah, it'd be phenomenal. And I hope it's soon. Brian Boucher, thank you for your time. All the best in the upcoming season with ESPN. We look forward to hearing your call.
Thanks, guys. Great to be with you. Thank you.
And once again, thanks to Brian Boucher for stopping by and all the chat. He has some great stories. The one thing I don't like, when you face the Flyers, was it always an intimidating time? Like, they always wanted to be that big bruising team, but they never really had the really strong goaltending to back it up.
They were still pretty tough early on. Like when I just broke into the league, perhaps. Yeah. But I think it was mostly in their farm system. The Phantoms always had a bunch of really strong, tough guys. It was just kind of a nightmare to play against them. But yeah, the NHL team was already kind of moving on from that, I think.
The one thing I forgot to ask Brian, and I meant to, and I'm sure he wouldn't appreciate it anyway. He was 1-9-1 against the Ottawa Senators in his career. So probably a good thing I left it out. Anyway, Craig, welcome back. Sorry, I didn't mean to keep you there.
Okay.
How's your summer been?
It was good. Yeah, it was a nice little break we took there. It was good to kind of take your foot off the gas for a little bit. And so, like you mentioned at the beginning, there's a couple of things we wanted to kind of change and work on and catch up on and whatever. So it was a good opportunity for us to kind of take a breather, come back, and then so now refresh before we start back up again. So yeah, it was good. Nice to have a little downtime. How about you, Brent? Nice. Brent, it was good to. Everyone that asked me, I just assumed you kept working. That's the way I looked at it. We took a break and you kept working. That's how I saw it.
Do you know the other thing I've done isn't smart was I've always wanted to get involved in my son's hockey, but I've always traveled, so never had commitment or always had commitment issues. So this year I said I'll join, and I joined the local association board. Now I just work all the time. It's more work now than anything else I do.
It's so funny, man. And actually, you're leading me perfectly into what I'd like to talk about a little bit today, which is I want to talk about hockey parents a little bit. And you've had an opportunity now to be a little bit more of a hockey parent now that the travel restrictions aren't there anymore for you. Meth, you grew up, right? You have a hockey parent, and you got kids now. So and we have Brian Boucher, right, whose son was just drafted by the Ottawa Senators, makes it all kind of loops it all together here. So Brent, can we just start with that then? Like, what's your experience like now? Been kind of being on the official side of hockey dads.
Like, I've always known there to be crazy hockey parents. There just is. And it doesn't end. So we just went through tryouts, and you see a lot of stuff that gets said and afterwards of parents their kid doesn't make it, and they think it's all politically based. And you try to avoid all the politics that are involved in minor hockey. And there are still some, regardless, no matter what happens either way. So there's a lot of stuff that goes on that you try to eliminate, but boy, there have been, and I won't say it's this year, but there have been parents in the years going into tryouts of son, my son, if he's not in the top 3 goaltending or top 2 goaltending, I want him released right away so he can go play somewhere else. Well, what if your goalie ends up he would rank number 3, but they released him because he said he needed to be number 2. Like, parents continue to hoop their kids into doing this stuff sometimes. And so like parents just need to step back. And that's the one thing the coach said this year. It's like, I have enough friends. I don't need any of you. I just want to coach your kid. So if you need to talk to me, you got to go through the convener or whatever. Like, I don't need to talk to you. And so it's sometimes it gets out of control.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I grew up in hockey. Matt, you did it as well. Like looking back on it, let's talk about a good thing first. What were your parents like bringing you to games? I imagine, was it more your dad than your mom? That's kind of the case for what it was. For
yeah.
me, but
Both my parents worked like shift work. So my mom was an emergency nurse and my dad was a police officer. So, you know, they both had crazy busy schedules. So they were split. My dad coached me a little bit. I was very fortunate to have him as a coach. You know, he's really good at pushing me the right way. Not a screamer, but still had a very strong presence, you know, and if there was something that he noticed, you know, in a game or that I wasn't trying, you know, he'd let me know in the car on the way home, but like in just a stern way. And so I had a lot of respect for that. And he led me the right way, a lot of skating, power skating, all that stuff, but very involved, very serious. That was just his demeanor, and being a police officer at that time as well, I think had something to do with it, and his personality. And my mom, of course, was more the soft approach. So obviously I was always excited to have my mom drive me to games.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, you know, my brother and I were lucky because my dad was a pretty good player as well. So we were able to skate with him lots growing up, and he'd always rent the ice for us at Minto Arena, the little studio ice in the summers that we would share with other parents, of course. And the kids we'd go out there and just scrimmage. It was always fun. And to me, that was my biggest takeaway.
Nice.
Now, but sorry, when you got to AAA level, would you play the 67s? What would have been your AAA team? Gloucester?
So we didn't have AAA when I was a player. There was no AAA as a kid, right? It was AA. That was the highest level you could play at. And I played for the Ottawa Sting.
Okay. So did you sense that all the parents kind of felt like they were the next NHL player?
There's some of them for sure.
And that's the tough part.
Yeah. But you know, it's funny. That started to fade a little bit. Once we got to minor bantam, where it was our OHL draft year at the time, that's where you were getting drafted to the OHL. A lot of that bullshit kind of went away because it was very clear who were the very good players. And maybe some of those parents who were a little crazy in the years prior, you could tell they kind of understood where their kids stood at that point. And that was a good thing. So, but there was always crazy parents, the screamers in the stands. I never understood that. The ones that were screaming from the crowd, and it's one thing to be cheering your kids on. It's another to be screaming at the refs or screaming at so-and-so. I never understood it. And that would have embarrassed me if my parents were like that. I would have had to have told them. But again, I guess as a kid, you don't know any better. So I feel like, just to touch on your comment there, Wally, one last thing. I don't think that's ever going to change. I think it's just human nature. Some people are nuts. Some people are a little more reserved, and then you get the people in between. And it's sometimes those people need a reminder, but even then, I feel like it still won't change. I think it's just who you are, and some people are like that.
Well, now because of you shouldn't be talking at all, whatever, there's hand signals. So you can look up and see parents giving hand signals to kids.
What?
Yeah. So it doesn't it doesn't.
Yeah, that's weird.
That's the tough part. Like and people think that doesn't get noticed. Well, I can tell you, like, the coaching staff tells me about noticing, like, did you see that parent up there with the hand signals?
Let's put this into perspective for everybody. I played in a league with a lot of teams. The only players that even got a lick of NHL time from that entire league was myself, of course, and Grant Klitzum. Oh. Two defensemen, kind of stay-at-home D-men that weren't really that special in minor hockey. I mean, I was good at the fundamentals, like skating and all that stuff, but I wasn't lighting up the lamp every night. All those goal scorers that were hogging the puck and never picking passes. Some of the parents were crazy. They didn't even make it to major junior hockey, let alone the pro level. So the point is, all that stuff, I mean, it's just about progression and getting slowly a little bit better every year and being consistent. I feel like people have a skewed viewpoint of what it takes to make it to that next level, and can be a little too hard on their kids. And so if I could leave anybody with that, it's like sometimes it's the last person you expect that'll end up making it.
Absolutely. And right now, like, we're going through the hitting phase with my kid, and it's the first year he's had hitting because last year there was no contact.
Yeah.
It's a huge separator.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
If you're like, right. If you're not like, and my kid's on the smaller size, and there's probably a 70-pound weight difference to some of these kids and inches. Right.
Yeah.
But if you're not ready to take that, you're not going to play at that level. And so that whole hitting thing changes all these guys who think they can fly up and down the ice, because all of a sudden they run into a wall or a hip check.
I agree. Yeah, it's crazy.
I do have a question though, and that is, parents are still parents, and when they see that perhaps their kid's not playing up to his potential or his best, they get like, I don't know, frustrated is the word, but you can tell they're a little disappointed. So did you ever joke with your dad knowing like, I know if you shake your head or if you stand this way or that way, I know you're pissed off at me. Like my kid will say, he goes, I can tell you're mad at me just by the way your arms are folded. I'm like, oh
yeah. Oh yeah. And that's again, like you can't blame your parents for that. I'm sure I'll be like that with my son, you know, because all you want is your kid, I'm sure. And I'm sure this was the case with my mom and dad, or especially my dad. You just want your kid to try hard and work hard, right? At least put in the effort. And so, and that's part of learning, right? Like that can translate to anything you do off the ice. Sports are a great mechanism for that. It teaches you a lot of stuff that you can bring with you in the real world. And so I'd look at my dad, and if his arms were crossed and he had a bit of a stern look, I knew at that point. And then on the flip side, when he was laughing with other parents and looked a little happier, I knew that I was probably playing a little bit better of a game. Yeah. So again, it's all relative, and I don't blame him for any of those other nights.
Oh, it's such an interesting time. Sorry, Craig.
No, that's okay. Last thing I was going to touch on was something that came up kind of at the end of the interview there, where they talked about the dad's trip and how legendary the dad's trip might be with all these alumni on this one. Which, that'd be amazing. Methot, how many dad's trips did your dad do?
I got a good story there.
Hey, good.
So, my dad came on a bunch of trips, always very outspoken, always had killer speeches. He was hilarious, especially when I was in Columbus and in Ottawa. He was always a treat to bring with the team. In Dallas is when I got hurt, but my dad happened to be in Dallas at the time preparing to go, for this dad's trip. But I, at the last second, couldn't go on the trip. Well, lo and behold, my dad, he goes anyway, and the trip happens to be in Las Vegas. And so I'm in Dallas, I'm staying home in Dallas. My dad decides to go on the trip anyway. They encouraged him to do so. And apparently had a blast. And I'm getting videos from guys like Jamie Benn and Bish showing me videos of my dad dancing like on the dance floor with some random Vegas dancers and stuff like that, having the time of his life. And I'm at home nursing my knee. So again, those are just small examples of what the dads get a taste of when they go on the road. They have a blast. The coaches take them out. They go to these fancy dinners. They go to see their kids play. They get these cool suit jackets that have your name embroidered inside with the team logo. The teams, for the most part, do it up really well and take good care of the dads.
I do think the mom's trip is probably more wild than the dad's trip, right? Like I just think
the moms get into arguments more. Believe it or not, not a surprise at all to me. I don't care if I take flack for saying it. It's a firsthand experience that I've seen. And my mom I don't think my mom ever actually came on a trip. Maybe she did once, but from what I understand, the women can get a little more, a little more competitive with each other. So it's a little different. It's a different animal than the men. I'll say that. Yeah,
fair enough.
Brent, you covered some of these road trips with the dad's trips and stuff. How'd the dynamic for you change on the road when now these guys have their dads around and maybe they're getting those looks, not the hand signals, but maybe their dads are giving them those looks or
they all play better, right? Like all the guys play better because you got your dad in the stands. And so those are the trips you always try to work around when you need a couple of points. You're like, that's when we need the dad's trip. So and the players are for the most part relaxed. It's the guys perhaps on the bubble that don't get to play every game. They really want in, and when they aren't, they're a little more stressed out because they want to play in front of their dad, obviously. But for the most part, that trip is relaxed. It's fun. Guys play extremely well, and it makes it a lot more entertaining when you can put the dads. I love interviewing parents in a broadcast. We did Max Lajoie had a goal and assist in his first period of his NHL game. We had his dad on right after. We had Drake Batherson's dad on when Drake, I think, scored in his first shot in the NHL. There's been a few along the way. Those things are always fun to do.
Yeah, and I wanted to add the biggest takeaway. I think that my dad, because I still remember him making that comment, was the amount of food that we ate, and he could not keep up. Because we'll get up in the morning, have a massive breakfast, big pregame meal, then there's a pregame snack, and then there's a postgame meal, and I don't think he understood how much food we ate as players until he experienced it firsthand. He's like, I'm okay, I'm good, I can't eat anymore. And so he basically starved himself all day until this massive meal at dinner time. So those are little things I think that as a parent, you don't understand in the meetings. We'd sit down when Ken Hitchcock was my coach. and just to see how the coaches communicate with the players and all the meetings prior to games and in the morning skates. I don't think the parents understood how much work and time goes into the game. And so those were eye-opening experiences for my old man.
Okay. So did Hitch, though, knowing how quick-witted he is, step up the chirp game when the dads were in there?
Yeah. Oh yeah. And he'd make fun of the dads too, right? Like if a dad was like kind of dragging his feet a little to get into the meeting or late to whatever we were doing at that time, Hitch wasn't scared to call that dad out and just flat out embarrass him in front of the whole group. And that's Hitch, right? And a lot of coaches would have fun with the dads too. Yeah. It's not like they were just chirping them, but it was always there was a really cool dynamic there because they don't want to go overboard, but they'd still give them some jabs.
Yeah. Well, it's the respect level, right? Like, Ken Hitchcock or all the coaches understand what those dads have sacrificed to get their kids to the National Hockey League. So the respect level is huge. That's why it's always a fun trip.
Yeah.
Last little tie-in here. Meth, speaking of crazy hockey dads, you got a little Netflix recommendation
oh my God.
You wanted to drop for us. Kind of ties it all together nicely there.
Yeah, that was a good setup, Craig. No, I just wanted to just throw this out there because I just finished a Netflix documentary. It's a part of the Untold series. There's the Caitlyn Jenner one, and there's
like a boxing one, right?
Yeah, there's the boxing one. That one was great too. Yeah. I watched that one on the plane. So last night I watched it's called Crime and Penalties, and it's basically the Galante family out of Connecticut, a mob family that decides to own a UHL hockey team, and they're called the Trashers. And these guys own a garbage business. Of course,
I have that jersey.
It's Wally, Craig. This documentary is basically Tiger King mixed with hockey. It is freaking crazy. I don't want to give away any spoilers. When everybody out there listening, and you guys included, get a chance to watch this documentary, watch it. It's basically a mixture between The Sopranos, Gladiators or WWE, and hockey, and it's just nuts. These guys basically put together a team of meatheads, and they beat the crap out of every team.
I followed this team.
It's wild.
So back when they first started, I wanted a jersey to wear for beer league hockey. And so I started looking around at all the crazy logos that were out there to order a jersey. And I found the guy coming out of the garbage can. So I ordered this jersey. Anyway, Bruce Gardner, the former Ottawa Senator, played on that team. I don't know if he's in the documentary.
So the Danbury Trashers, and as they had, I don't think
Roman
this is really
Ender.
a spoiler. So to get the team going, to make a big splash, they signed Brent Gretzky as a player. And it was this big deal. Mike Rupp during the lockout year went and played there. And Rupper actually is in the movie briefly talking about his experience and the money that these guys are getting paid under the table. It's friggin' wild. I could watch it again. My wife missed out on it because she was out with her friends so I'll probably make her watch it with me because I'll gladly watch this thing again. It's just crazy. It's Untold, Crime and Penalties. Very good documentary series.
I'll have my jersey for the show next show. I still have it.
I'll order one. Yeah.
I think Roman Ender got 20 games in a suspension.
Yeah.
I think he attacked an official.
Yeah. Oh, there's some of the fights. Anyway, I'll leave it at that.
All right, I'm gonna go watch that. Okay.
Sure.
Yeah, Brent and I have something to do now. Everybody else, we can give everybody else something to do because we're doing Trivial Trivia's back, presented by gongshow.com. So check out their fall lineup of hats, buckets, hoodies. We got some great stuff on there. So go check all that out. Grab your stuff at gongshow.com. So for today's trivia, speaking of our friends at Gong Show, we got one of their puck luck games to give away. We gave some away before. They're awesome. For you and a buddy, line up across each other. I think, you can play foursies too. It's pretty sweet. So we got another one of those to give away. Gong Show's the best.
Yeah, they are.
They give us the best stuff to give away. So we got a nice little easy question for you. Easy. I don't even know the answer to it, to be honest with you. But today's question for a puck luck game is, who was the only Ottawa Senator to register a hat trick against Brian Boucher? If you know the answer to that, head on over to Twitter and use the hashtag Wally and Methot. Be sure to tag at Gong Show Gear and give us your answer. And we're going to announce the winner on our next show.
By the way, Gong Show taking care of us at our golf tournament, which is only now a week away. Next September the 10th is our sold out golf tournament that we're playing in.
How's your golf game? How's your golf game, boys?
No, I'm not. I'm there for comic relief. Okay, that's all I'm doing.
Mine's not great. I haven't been playing very much this summer, so
we don't need to win our tournament. It's okay.
No.
Yeah. Well, we should get like an extra stroke a hole, something.
I don't know. Yeah, or just drink. I'm just gonna have some drinks and try to relax.
Try and keep it between the fairways.
There will be some whitewaters on hand. All right, and our next show is, by the way, Monday. We have Dave Poulin lined up to join us for Monday on Labor Day.
That'll be a fun one.
So I was like, "Do you work on Mondays on Labor Day?" He's like, "I will join the show." So we're gonna
we work on Labor Days.
Yeah,
we do.
That's good.
It's not hard work. These guys have fun when they come on our show, right?
Yeah, man, it's easy.
Yeah. So
live on Mondays. That we're doing. We're recording.
We'll talk about it.
We'll talk about it. There's a show coming. There's a show coming on Monday.
Yeah. All right. We'll see you on Monday, everybody. Take care. You're watching the Wally Methot Show, powered by Barhaven Ford. Time for us to drive on out of here.